Right, hi everyone. So I've recently been asked by a friend when is the right time, like me, to get an EV. So this is going to be a new to EVs buyer's guide. When should you go get an EV? And my answer used to be everyone should get one because they are better cars, they're easier to drive, they're smoother to drive, they're quieter to drive, they're more fun. And you can do all the miles that you need to do on a practical basis. Basically almost everyone except weird niches can get along with an EV just fine, if not better than a combustion car engine. And electricity used to be so cheap even in public charging spaces that I thought there was almost no niche where you couldn't or shouldn't just go EV. And let me explain why. So when I first get my Hyundai Kona, even the supermarket shopping rapid chargers, the price per kilowatt hour was only 30p. So that meant, or even GridServe, even the motorway services rapid chargers, even they were only 30p. So that meant you could charge for cheaper than you could get petrol. Why? Well, 30p a kilowatt hour, let's do the maths. My car can do about 4 miles per kilowatt hour unless I'm doing 85 into a snowstorm. And therefore you'd be paying 7.5p per mile. Whereas with petrol, my old Hyundai Swift could do 50 or 60 miles to the gallon if I was careful, and that would work out average petrol prices around 12p per mile. So this would be about 7.5p. But now everything's got a bit more expensive. I think you should think about it a bit more. Where is it still a no-brainer, you ask? Well, I think it is still a no-brainer if you have your own drive. I think everyone who's got their own drive and still has a combustion engine car is crazy. I think that they don't realise how much better EVs are. Maybe they're not in a financial position to swap cars. Fair enough. But they would save loads of money if they did. So it would make loads of financial sense. It'd make driving sense, I think, for 99% of people in terms of it would do the range that they needed for their day-to-day lives and even holidays and things. That would be absolutely fine. And it would be more convenient. It'd save them time because they wouldn't be stopping on the way home to pick up petrol, etc. They'd just get home, plug in, takes a few seconds, there'd be no waiting to pay, and there'd be no horrible smelly fumes and all this sort of thing, and huge win for the environment. So if you've got to drive, easy. Number two, if you can park at home reliably, not on a drive, and manage to charge somehow. So the way I got round it on my terrace street is that there is no terrace over this side of the road, there is only a terrace there. So there's no competition for me to park here really, where I am on my street, so I can reliably park here. I've put a wee sign on my gate saying EV charging or please don't park here. And Whitley Bay, where I live, is full of these terrace streets, and it's full of people with signs at the back of their garages or at the back of their yards saying please don't park here. Because it's a public road, anyone could park here, but ultimately it's considered rude to park out on the back of someone's garage or house or gate, and loads of people have got signs. So I've got one that says EV charging, please don't park here, and no one's ever parked here. So it is not a problem at all. And now, if I wanted to park out the front of my house, I've got a public pavement, and so I couldn't put a wire across there. But if your council approves something called CurboCharge, which is one brand of a charging gully, which is a safe way of cutting a hole into the pavement and then replacing it with a plastic cover that stops anyone tripping over a pavement. So people just walk over the pavement with the wire running under their feet, under the ground, and that's where your EV charging cable goes. So scenario one is you have your own drive. Scenario two is you can fudge away to charge at home nice and easy. And the reason that those two are so important is with an off-peak EV tariff, you can charge at 7p a kilowatt hour. Now, what does that mean? Well, if you're going 4 miles per kilowatt hour, so if you're doing 4 miles on that 7p, you're paying less than 2p a mile. So the average person in the UK does less than 10,000 miles a year, but we use 10,000 as a nice round number. So for a car that can go 4 miles on 7p, if you do 10,000 miles, you're basically paying £150 or thereabouts. That is absolutely nothing. So it is fantastic value. If you are driving a 50-mile-an-hour petrol car, well, how much stuff do you need? Well, 10,000 miles by 50, you need 2,000 gallons. What is that right? No, you need 200 gallons. And if you need 200 gallons, how many litres is that? We've got to turn it by 4.5, etc. And it works out, it's over £1,500. So you can save over £1,000 by going for an EV that you can charge at home on an EV tariff. So that's nice and easy. It's kind of a no-brainer. The other thing that people often think about is, well, your day rate's higher, but it's barely any different. And if you're driving a lot of miles, then your car use will be a lot higher than your home use. So doing about 10,000 miles a year on this car will be about 2,000 kilowatt hours, and that is as much as the average home would use. So it's more important to get a really super cheap rate on your car, I would argue. So that's the first two scenarios. The third scenario that I thought about, I'll just remind myself of, is the next easiest way you could do it, and that is with a workplace charger. So my work have about 50 chargers. It might be 40, it might be 50, somewhere in between. And really that's because the government would give you grants of up to 50. So they wanted to do their bit for the environment and help people go electric. So they installed EV charging in the car park in various different spaces. And now they only charge 25p per kilowatt hour. I think that's a perfect amount. Reason being is, it's not so expensive that no one will use it because it's so expensive. It's not so cheap that anyone who, like me, who's got 7p charging at home, will hog the charger at work every day because it's cheaper than that, and then they get this perverse incentive to actually use them more than they need to, i.e. free. And that means that people who can't charge at home can get an EV, will use a charger, and that charger's available. So I think it's the perfect sweet spot. You could do this because if you're working for 5 days a week, you're never going to use your car so much at a weekend that you couldn't possibly use the car over the weekend because of your because you haven't got a charger at home. You'd be absolutely fine to charge Friday and Monday, no matter how far you drove, really. And if you're going further than the average there and back again range of a car, or a modern EV, then it's really never really a problem to get a quick public charge while you're out and about. So that's number 3, workplace chargers. But for that, you've got to have a reliable, permanent workplace, right? Because you don't necessarily want to commit to a long-term purchase like a car if you're changing workplaces every few weeks, months, or even a couple of years. You kind of want a bit of permanence there. So if you've got a sense of permanence at work, you might want to commit to an EV if you can get EV charging at work. Perfect. And at 25p, you're still going to save about half. You might be £500 a year. And if you can get a second-hand EV for about the same price as the second-hand petrol car, just like the Kona, go look at 2020 models of Konas. The EV and the petrol car are about the same price now. You could make significant savings and your life will be better with that EV. The fourth scenario where I think you can get away with having an EV in the UK at the moment is if you just get a Tesla. Now, the reason being is the range in the Teslas is always quite good, and the charging network is always quite good, and the charging network is always quite cheap. So it won't apply to everyone around the country all the time, but you could probably get away with a bit more of public charging if it's just a Tesla. Reason being is supercharging is just cheaper. So supercharging varies its prices on time of day. I'll put a little picture up here to show you like what the typical business periods are and the typical prices you might pay, but it's typically between 30 and 50p. Now, the graph that I'll show you is for non-Tesla members. So actually, it's usually about 10p cheaper for Tesla members or Tesla drivers. And so you will get 30 to 50p a kilowatt hour. So at 30p, that's about half the cost of petrol. 50p is about the same. So you're going to be able to charge it fairly quickly at a rapid charger. You're not going to waste too much time of your life charging the car. And even if you're just resorting to only Tesla superchargers, you're probably not losing loads of money. You're probably still either saving money or breaking even versus a petrol car. So probably still worth it if you just get a Tesla. Lol. Right, final one, number 5. And I think it's going to be about, is your local public charging network available and affordable? So back when I got my car, there's a Morrison's about a mile away, and it did 30p per kilowatt hour on their rapid charger. So I could, once a week, we go shopping to Morrison's, I plug in my car, and then by the time we're out, we've filled it up and we've loaded the boot, the car is full enough to go. It might not have gone to 0 to 100% full in that 30, 40, 50 minutes, hour, but it would have been full enough. That's a bit variable depending on how quick your car charges, how quick that rapid charger is, and just quite how frigid it is. If it's really, really cold, then the car will charge a bit slower, and then you might not have got as much as you thought. But essentially, you could get 90 minutes on that rapid charger to fill that car. And especially if you're going to grab a quick bit of food in the cafe afterwards, say if the kids really needed feeding and it's nice and cheap, or kids eat free at Morrison's cafes, so you know, sometimes a Sunday brunch or something wasn't the worst thing in the world, then that would kind of work. Now everything's a bit more expensive now post the fossil gas price crisis that started in 2021 and 2022 post-COVID, with everyone competing to buy up LNG and competing to buy up natural gas for the electricity. So now the UK's electricity is a lot more expensive, and so is everywhere in the world that's exposed to this natural gas price for their electricity generation. So that 30p per kilowatt hour has now jumped up to, in some cases, 89p. It was over £1 at one point for some random rapid chargers, but some of the expensive ones can be approaching 90p, or they can be in the high 70s. So that's a bit more difficult. Places like Sainsbury's have got they've rolled out about 700 rapid chargers across the UK at different sites. They've got 700 supermarkets, big supermarkets. They've put chargers in about 100 of them. There's about 700 of them now, and they charge between 65 and 75p at different places. So that's still quite expensive, and that'll be more expensive than petrol. So although you could, it's not necessarily the greatest financial decision. Other places are a bit cheaper. That used to be Genie Point at Morrison's. It's now changed to MFG. They're charging 68p. Places like Tesco might have a Pod Point charger. It might just be a 7 kilowatt destination charger, and therefore walking back and forth to collect your car is going to be a pain. There might be parking problems there. Don't you get any parking fines if the store only allows 3 hours, or only allows you during hours, you can't leave it overnight or something. But they do have rapid chargers, and they're about 40p up to 60p I think for their rapid chargers. Aldi have just installed some destination chargers at their supermarkets. Some of them are 11 kilowatts, some of them are 22 kilowatts, so you could charge in 3 or 4 hours, so that might be within any parking restrictions, or you might live right by those supermarkets, because some of them are in housing estates, certainly in North Shields and Tynemouth they are, so it may make sense for you to go to his local supermarket and just plug in. Lidl have got some for about 60p as well. So that's supermarkets. Supermarkets are one, so that's 5A supermarkets. Your weekly shop, go plug in while you shop, and your car will be ready for the time you go home. 5B would be car parks. So your local council may have leased a few of its spaces to destination chargers. So you may be willing on a Friday evening to leave your car at the local car park instead of outside your house. You may have a walk. I don't know how far is acceptable, a 5-minute walk, a 10-minute walk, a 20-minute walk, a half-an-hour walk. It could be a nice keep fit idea. This is what I used to do. I used to, for the first year of having my car, I hadn't installed a car charger in my house. What I would do is I would park it at the local hospital, because they had free EV charging, and that would keep me fit. So I would drive it up there on a Friday, and I'd jog a 5k back. And in the morning, if the kid woke up at 6 a.m, I would plonk her in a pram and we would jog back up to go fetch it. Kept her busy, kept me busy, kept me fit. And back then, I didn't have a tummy that I've got now. So the convenience of having EV charging has made me lazy and fat. So that's one, so car parks. And really, it'll depend if the convenience factor versus the price factor work. So is it cheap enough and is it convenient enough for you to make that work for you? Have a big think about that if it's going to work for your life. The last thing I want to do is give you this suggestion that you could or should do it and it costs you loads of money and you find it really inconvenient. If you find it convenient to go out for a jog and Cape Fit, wonderful. Final option is on-street charging. So there are a few brands that will install posts or on-street furniture that have EV charging in, and then you can pay a public charging company for the right to use it. They will sometimes have reserved bays. Sometimes those reserved bays will be reserved. Sometimes those reserved bays won't have any sort of penalty to parking in them, and so people just block them. That's called icing. So on-street charging is something you could do. Now, the problem is that it's just that UK public EV charging, even for AC charging or destination charging or on-street parking, can still be a little pricey. There's also lamppost chargers where they've turned the lamppost into a conduit for having a bit of power, and inside you can plug into those. Now the prices might be about 40p around the break even, but some of them are a bit higher in the sort of 50s, and that'll be just over the cost of petrol. So how convenient that is for you and how cheap that is for you will vary and depend on the specifics of A, your life, and B, the price of the charger and the location of the charger. But there's things like Ubitricity. So that was one of the first brands I'd seen when I first got my EV, and I did think that I would never get a home charger. Didn't think that I would be able to do it or should do it or could do it. And I was sort of imagining that, say, this will be turned into an EV charger, and then I'd be able to park out here. But the problem is you just have a little bit of competition from your neighbours for who gets to park by it, etc. Whereas people are willing to not park directly outside your door, the back of your house, but they might not have the discipline to avoid parking opposite or right opposite a random lamppost. So they might not really know. So yeah, either it'd have to be a reserved bay or you'd be taking the risk of not getting access to it, because there's another one here just there. So yeah, let me know if you've enjoyed this video. Let me know if you think those are sensible thoughts, or if you'd only recommend it to people with drives, you'd only recommend it to people with workplace charging. What would be your limits? What do you find acceptable? Or what other advice would you give people thinking about going EV if they don't yet have their own house, if they don't yet have their own home charger? And I will see you in the next one, guys. Thanks for listening. Hey everyone, so of course I forgot the final way that you could get an EV and make it work for you. So number 6 is of course things like co-charger or charger sharing. So perhaps you just have a neighbour who has an EV charger, they only need to plug in once a week, and they're willing to let you use their electricity either for free or for a nominal fee. So charging my car at home is about a £5, so they might be happy for you to just give them a £5 every time you want to plug in, or you could go down an official app, something like co-chargers, ones that I've signed up for, and I put my charger on this map, and you can send me a message and say, can I plug in at your house? How much do you want to charge me? And I've normally put it up at 30p a kilowatt hour as a very affordable slice of the pie for whoever wants it. So you could download the co-charger app. You can look wherever you are in the country for whether there is a charger going up. So let's reset this filter, and look, there's loads all around the country. So why don't you see if that would work for you as well? Can you get affordable chargers? Let's just pick some random ones somewhere. And someone was charged 70p per kilowatt hour, so no one's going to use that. Are you mad? 40p a kilowatt hour. Let's have a little zoom in somewhere. How much is someone going to charge in Scarborough? 50p a kilowatt hour. 33p. Choose one in Durham.
20p a kilowatt hour. So a variety of different costs. So some of those will make sense for you and some of those won't. So thanks for tuning into the video. Like, comment, subscribe. Make sure to check the description below for Octopus Energy referral code, 50 quid for you, 50 quid for me. Octopus Electroverse referral code, £5 charging your EV, £5 for me. And the same for Instavolt below, and back market as well. Second-hand electronic goods, you can get great prices, and you get a tenner off, and I get a tenner. See you in the next one.